Westworld Season 4 Episode 5 has just released on HBO Max, and in this episode we get more reveals surrounding Christina having met Teddy in the previous one, host Man in Black beginning to question his reality, and more on the control of Halores in this new world. In this spoiler review and explained analysis, I'm going to be giving you my breakdown of Westworld Season 4 Episode 5, entitled Zhuangzi, alongside discussing my general thoughts towards it. But before I get into it, if you want to see more videos on Season 4 of Westworld, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. Also, feel free to check me out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram at Cortex Videos, which is all linked in the description below. But without further ado, let's dive into my review and explained video for Westworld Season 4 Episode 5. So in Westworld Season 4 Episode 5, we learn more about the world that Halores has constructed and the place that Christina has within it. Zhuangzi may have once again displayed the loop that Christina is in, but it's here that we really start to feel that she's having an important awakening. She talks about a familiar character that might or might not be herself, and that there's something wrong with the world. And like we learnt in Episode 4, it's the world in which Halores has finally succeeded in turning into her own playground for humans. But that world also includes human outliers that are apparently causing a bit of a problem. It's similar to what I theorized in my trailer breakdown video the other day, but we learn here that there's a bit more to that problem. They are disrupting what Halores apparently imagined would be a temporary place for her kind before they can transcend beyond a physical realm. This week, the humans and the hosts are essentially both facing an existential crisis, and it's going to be interesting to see where this all goes. But let's get into what happened this week and how these complications seem to be developing. Episode 5 begins with host William having dinner with a wealthy couple, and while the mood is quite relaxed, we begin to see a turn in the motives of our fellow host. When one of them start talking about being successful on their own merits, William questions them for believing a lie. He follows by explaining that their meal together and friendship isn't real, and that their lives aren't real, and they have no free will because of what Halores has done with the world. Host William reinforces that he can do what he wants to either of them and they can't do anything to stop it. However, that's the basis for which things start to change with host William, and it's not long before Clementine arrives and asks him to come with her to survey an important situation. They arrive at an apartment building, step over many dead bodies on their walk to one of the rooms, and once there, they find a woman covered in blood saying that she's won the game. She claims that she's entitled to a reward, and Clem tells William that she was ready to transcend before she was sent on a mission to hunt an outlier. We know from Season 3 that the outliers were the unpredictable humans that Serac either stopped or wanted rid of, and it's here that we learn that they may be causing problems for the hosts that Halores orders. Host William tells the woman that there are no rules in Hell's world, and that if he wanted to, he could eliminate her for mistreating this reality. He tells Clem to take the woman back to where she came from, and he eventually returns to that meal he was having before. So like this host that went crazy after hunting down a human outlier, it seems many characters are beginning to have an existential crisis over the world that Halores has constructed, and maybe even Halores herself. That's because she admits that the world she has made and controls is also quite boring. In a scene with host William on the streets of New York, she states that she can make 99% of humans do what she wants or dance until they can't does anymore. As we see in the scene, the fly-infected humans dance until they drop down, they form a chair for her to sit on, and even one of them has played the piano for so long that their fingers are split open and bleeding all over the keys. But you can only do that for so long. Halores says that she doesn't understand why her vision hasn't gone further, even comparing herself to God and saying that God is bored. Eventually, her and host William walk towards the tower that we've heard about and seen for so long now, and on the way, we see the crazy host from the opening scene lying next to the pathway with a bullet wound to the head. William looks concerned, but it's clear that Halores wants to know why she was acting strange and why she eventually killed herself. She explains that this host eventually did so after successfully hunting down and killing the Outlier, who we find out is the homeless man that was in Christina's narrative in previous episodes. She tells host William that 38 hosts have committed suicide after coming in contact with these Outliers that they have been ordered to hunt down. She blames William for their failures surrounding this, and in a way of him regaining some command, she brings up a picture of a new Outlier on the control map at the tower and orders him to kill her himself. So essentially, Outliers, the humans who are immune to Hell's fly program, can see the tower, can realise they've been living in a fake reality, and have an existential crisis in the process. And Hell sends hosts to kill the Outliers, but some of them that communicate with the Outliers end up going crazy and killing themselves. And it seems that her plan was to create more hosts and send them out into the world to live with the goal that they'd later choose to leave their bodies behind and ascend into something that we currently do not know of. We see a host in the tower having his pearl taken out by a drone host and placed into a new device, but it's mysterious over what that actually involves. My guess would be that it's something to do with the Sublime, and if we remember when Bernard went in there, he came out with predictive paths of the future and now seems quite evolved. I could be wrong, but I think we'll soon find out what this all means. What Halores also explains in this scene though is that most of the hosts living in her world prefer to stay in reality and live their lives traditionally. So we're guessing that only a few of them have transcended or evolved, leading her down this path of revenge and also boredom. She turns the whole of New York into basically a Westworld park for the hosts, and the humans are programmed and controlled in loops just like the hosts were before. But when Host Man in Black goes off to find this Outlier that Halores ordered him to track down, things begin to get quite complicated. We learn that Stubbs, Jay, and the Resistance arrive at the city, and they aim to rescue the Outlier that William is hunting down. Something to keep in mind with this is that it seems like Halores has made hunting the Outliers a game, similar to what we saw in Westworld with the maze, but in reverse. That's why the host who killed herself in the beginning of this episode referenced to winning a game. So even more questions come out of the world that Halores is controlling and what that means for the individuals who play this game or those who fight to stop it. But coming back to those events with host William, he tracks down Stubbs, Jay, and the Resistance members, and in an attempt to cause a distraction while finding the Outlier that the Resistance are trying to save, he activates and controls the many fly-infected humans around them to attack. Jay is the only Resistance member to quickly escape this fight, while Stubbs and the others continue brawling, and he attempts to reach the Outlier before host William can kill her. But once William reaches the Outlier, he makes a mistake in listening to her speak as she talks about the unusual peace that comes to their world once figuring out that it's all a lie. Before he can pull the trigger, Jay intervenes and shoots host William, in turn saving the Outlier and escaping with her. What she said to William though has already eaten away at his mind, and it leads him to pursue a conversation with human William that Halores has kept as prisoner in that cryo chamber we saw in previous episodes. Host William is now questioning his place and purpose in this bigger game, and in his chat with Human William, he may be on the path of change that I also suggested in my trailer breakdown video the other day. The human version tells him that this reality doesn't have to belong only to Halores, and this leads to him repeating the line he spoke at the beginning of this episode. There's a beauty to this world, and order, so we like to believe. So while Halores believes that there should be an order and that beauty lies within that, Host William and even Christina have come to a point where they both think very differently. It's of course what led OG Dolores to break out of her loop in season 1, and now Host William might be following a similar path after his conversation with an outlier and now Human William. He's questioning whether he has free will, and like most of the hosts made by Halores, do they just follow their code and live normally? As Halores has become disappointed in him over the years, he is feeling distanced from what she has done to the world. So a few characters are definitely having an existential crisis and breaking out of their loops, which very much reminds us of those earlier seasons. And coming to the other narrative of this episode, while Christina is also having a similar experience, she's channeling that into what seems to be a more positive outcome. After her date with Teddy in the previous episode, she returns to work at Olympiad Entertainment and begins designing a story that is identical to the story that Dolores had in Westworld. A rancher's daughter living a simple life in the country. Her boss Emmett soon interrupts her though and asks her to pitch the idea to him immediately. She tells him the story we know, but while doing so, she gets a call from Teddy asking her to leave work as soon as she can to meet him. When she meets up with Teddy, she wants to know who he really is and why he knows all he does about her. He tells Christina that her stalker was telling the truth in that she ruined his life and that the world she believes is real is all a lie. She initially doesn't believe him on that, but Teddy proves that he's right when he asks her to control two humans on a bench to start interacting and then eventually fall out and go their separate ways. It works, and Teddy tells her that she's a god and that the only way she can stay safe is to stick to this loop. She leaves Teddy to meet an old college roommate for lunch, and it's none other than Halores herself, searching for answers she may already know and asking if she's met anyone new. Christina keeps Teddy's words in mind, catching on that something isn't quite right here, and uses her newfound ability of controlling humans so that she can cause a distraction at the restaurant and go back to work. And in the end of this episode, when Christina returns to Olympiad, she searches for Charlotte Hell on the system and there's no results, but when she searches again for Dolores Abernathy, it brings up an alert on the system that seemingly leads her boss right back over to her desk. After him pressing her with many questions, she uses her ability once again and is able to force him to stop and go home. Christina then enters Olympiad's database to access the system or map that we saw Halores use in the tower before, and when Christina asks it to show her the game and eventually those of the population on the map that she'd written stories for, it turns out that narratives have been written for virtually all of them. So Christina believed that she was writing stories for NPCs in a video game, but she's actually creating the personalities and narrative loops for the humans controlled by Halores in the city. She understands now that the world is a story and that she is the storyteller. This leads to a final scene between her and Teddy on the streets where he tells her, "This world is a lie, it's a story, a well-told one, but a lie all the same." Like Maeve, she's now able to use a newfound power to see beyond this reality that Halores controls, and she finally sees the tower that Teddy tried to make her see earlier earlier on, in turn asking him, "Who did this to me?" He replies, "You did," and right now we think that implies the version of Dolores inside of Charlotte Hale. That could take a twist if this narrative turns out to be set in the future and this is a simulation of Hale's world that they are using to make Dolores regather who she is, but if this is taking place at the same time in the same world, then he's likely talking about Halores. I'm currently not sure which of these options to currently lean towards, but I can imagine that Halores would do this to her, making a version of Dolores or using one of the lost pearls to create Christina and help her enslave the humans, without her knowing so of course. But then I come back to the question of, why would she take such a risk of allowing Christina to potentially work out what's going on? Christina is reminiscing of Dolores, programming the life of her into a character at work and gaining the ability to control people in the street. So why would Halores risk any of this happening? I guess you could argue that host William is breaking out too, and he has been Hale's minion for many years. But I just don't buy that with Christina as of yet, and I think the big questions still remain. Is Christina in the real world, or is she in a simulation of the real world that either Halores or someone else is using? And the same thing goes with Teddy actually being there. Yes, he may very well not be the Teddy that was put into the Sublime, but he's hinted an awful lot towards the history we know of. But if Christina is in the real world, what does Halores plan to do with her? I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but this episode did bring much more questions to an already big list of ones that we had. I think from here we could see the battle for the future of humanity between Christina and Halores, with Maeve, Caleb, Bernard, both Williams and the rest of them aligning with one or the other. Likely Christina's side at this current point, but we still need to find out exactly what Halores means when she talks about her kind transcending. Maybe it's to do with what's going on with Christina, or what we see in the trailers surrounding the Sublime. Hopefully we will get our answers very soon. So what are my overall thoughts on this latest episode? Well, after last week's fantastic entry, Westworld could have slowed down, but it seems like it's fully returned to its thought-provoking discussions surrounding evolution, and it clearly isn't cutting the pace. It may not be as thrilling or as action-packed as the previous episode, but its direct focus on the biggest mysteries make it as engrossing as ever. We still have questions surrounding Christina, but it does reveal that the nature of her reality isn't completely real. Unlike with all the main characters, this episode once again aligns itself with the Outliers that seem to want to make sense of the world and its control, making it so fascinating to see this from an entirely new perspective. The show has been about Outliers right from the beginning, and even with season 4 showing a reversal with the hosts now in control, there are still problems with the system because of the Outliers. Outliers still go against their codes and want to see how they're being controlled. It's going to be interesting to see how this develops in the last 3 episodes of the season, but I really enjoy that the show is going headfirst into the questions that made it so intriguing to begin with. If its goal was to have us questioning our own reality, then it's definitely succeeding. What matters now is how they answer all the questions they've outlined, and if it pulls it off, then it will be a hell of a final act to get us anticipating how this whole show will end up. But that was my spoiler review and explained analysis for Westworld Season 4 Episode 5. I'm giving it a rating of 8.5 out of 10. I will be doing a trailer breakdown, predictions and theories video for episode 6 in the next few days, so keep a lookout for that and stay tuned to my channel each week for breakdowns on every episode of season 4. But to those who have already seen the episode, what are your thoughts on all the events that went down, and what do you think will happen in episode 6? Let me know down below in the comment section. For more videos on every episode of Westworld Season 4, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.